Yeah, that's right. I see the chat. I see y'all rocking. I see y'all coming. Hit that like button as you enter the building. You know what I'm saying? Hit that like button. Show your love. Show your support. You know what I'm saying? This that dope soul. This that new thing. Nobody don't know about it.
Hello, Nick family. Welcome to another episode of the Knicks Recap and Reaction Show. This is a premiere, so you guys will be seeing us around lunchtime. The Knicks won, got off that skid, that three-game losing streak all the way, 128 to 116, and they looked good doing it. They looked like the team that we envisioned when we heard Mike Brown talking about how he wants this team to play. So they not only won, but they looked like that team. Jeff, how are you today? And just give me, what did you think about the win last night?
The vibes are good, man. I needed it. I need
Good.
it. I need to pump that more, inject more of that into my veins. I love it when the Knicks win. It was really good to bounce back, and it really looks to me like we always talk about the players having to adjust to a new coach, but the new coach is having to adjust to the players in this case too. So I think that's an interesting dynamic that we didn't always really consider. He's never coached these guys before, so what's the optimal way to utilize them and get the most out of them? That's a learning curve for him too, and I think he's kind of adapting the philosophy that too many cooks spoil the broth. He's got to tighten it up a little bit.
For sure, for sure. Um, for those who didn't watch the games, the Knicks started Jalen Brunson. Not Landry Shaman. You see? Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. You see what happened? Carl Anthony Towns, Mitchell
Yeah,
Robinson
it says the
started.
Bucks. This is from the
Oh, wait,
that
wait,
slide
wait.
from the Bucks game.
You know what? Let's just take that out. Let's just take that out altogether. But Carl Anthony Towns started at 4. Mitchell Robinson started at the 5. The Knicks had all players were available last night. Mitchell Robinson only played 13 minutes. We'll talk more about that during the course of the show. But this is my favorite slide because you get a chance to see how the Knicks played last night, and they pretty much dominated the game. Biggest lead was 25. The biggest lead Chicago had was 2, and that had to be somewhere in the first quarter, maybe early in the second quarter. I don't know, but the Knicks did their thing last night. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what stood out, just one thing that stood out, and then I'll piggyback and then add to that.
Welcome back, Carl Anthony Towns. That's what stood out. I mean, just you know, the kind of game that we expect from him. I thought he was terrific last night. Uh, Great on the glass, efficient 20 points. Just the all NBA player that we're used to seeing. Looked much more comfortable on the court with what was happening, and with what he was doing. So to me, when Towns plays well, I mean, shout out to David Smith, who I know will be watching later. He'll be happy to hear that. But I think that getting Towns going and he didn't have a probably high enough volume. He might have should have gotten the ball more, but to have him play well with 20 points and bounce back, I think was really important for this Knicks team, because I think that's how you punish Chicago, because Vucevic is not a really good defender. And so when you can have Towns in there doing his thing, and I thought he attacked from the top of the key more last night. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looked like that was put back into the game plan, where we didn't really see that as much in the first 4 games, and that seems to be his strength, right? That seems to be where he's most comfortable. So I kind of am glad that maybe it's not how Mike Brown would ideally want the offense to run, but he's like, you know what, we need to get him comfortable, we need to get him going, and so we're going to do the things that are in his wheelhouse, not the stuff that I want him to do. Like, and
And I think
ideal.
that's where he has the advantage against other centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most times in the post, he doesn't have that advantage unless he turns around in triple threat position and goes, and he rarely does that. Usually when he's in the post is back to the basket. I think he has the advantage off the drive. Ajay doesn't like to see that him driving, right? But I thought he did well. And to your point, 20 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. So even though he only had 11 shots, some of those opportunities, he had more opportunities that led to him going to the free throw line. Only took 2 3-pointers, made both of them, 5 of 11 from the field. I think, he's not being featured, in my opinion, at least in the way I thought he would be featured. He's getting his touches within the flow of the game, and he's making the most of him, and he's been a rebounding machine for us since he's been here, basically, and no different this game. I think what I want to talk about in terms of what stood out, we can get, I'm not going to choose a player. I'm going to go with the bench scoring and the bench rotation. The bench scored 46 points last night. That might have been a few games put together. And I think they've been over the losing streak. They've only been averaging 18 points per game. Right. So 46 was really good last night. I like the fact that, Clarkson only played 18 minutes, but it seemed like he had longer stretches to play. It wasn't like 3 minutes in, now you're out, 4 minutes in, now you're out. It seemed like he was in there for good stretches. And I think that allowed him to kind of get his bearings. Hart led the bench in minutes with 26, McBride 23, Clarkson 18, Shamet 18. And basically, Jeff, that bench was pretty tight. It was basically 9 players. Yabu played 2 minutes. The other guys who got a minute were in, I think, at the end of the game, and Hukporti didn't play at all. So it's pretty much was a 9-man rotation, which I like. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or not, or whether you like it or not, because I think when you have 9, those players get more minutes, and it allows them time to kind of get acclimated to the game. When you play 10, guys are playing 12 minutes a game, unless you just have that 10th man for 5 minutes. But that's not what Mike Brown has been doing. He's kind of been spreading the minutes relatively evenly behind Deuce, to those bench players. And me personally, I just didn't think it was enough time for them. So I really like the way the bench played. They hit shots. Clarkson hit shots. Now, I don't know if that's going to be how, every game. But, last night he hit shots for us. And so Hart looked like himself. We'll get into that a little later. But basically, I just wanted to point out that we got 46 minutes from the bench. The bench rotation was tighter, and the length of time that the bench players were in seemed to be extended to just give them more opportunity to get in the flow. Anything you want to add to that before you make your next point?
No, I think that's a good point. I think that it's interesting that Mike Brown even admitted, he's like, yeah, I haven't been doing a good, I've just been kind of, too random with my substitution patterns and rotations. It's kind of like when your kids are little, they need a routine. They need to get to bed at a certain time every day. You know what I mean? We get into, so they know, because there's an expectation there, right? If I know that I'm supposed to be bed by 9 o'clock, then I can get my teeth brushed at 8:30, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you're ready to go and ready to do what you need to do. When there's, okay, I know I'm getting my 20 minutes. I don't have to worry. I don't have to look over my shoulder. I'm just going to ball out. I'm going to play. And I think that's kind of what we saw last night. They weren't worried. Well, am I going to if I make a mistake, am I going to get pulled out, for this stretch of time only to go back in later? What's my role? What's my situation going to be? So to solidify that, I think was really important. So I think that's a great point. And then, I think the next thing that I want to say is the Mikal Bridges All-Star train continues. 9 assists. I think that was a career high for him last night. Like,
Yeah.
secondary playmaker. Hello,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love what we're seeing from Bridges right now, and even
5
Josh Hart.
rebounds too.
Yeah, even Josh Hart said he's not thinking about it. He's just out there playing. Like he just, he's in the flow. He just and I think it's sustainable because I think that's who he is as a player. I think last year Tibbs kind of put the handcuffs on him a little bit, and
Mhm.
limited him and he, and I love that Mike Brown even said he was in here early with the kids. Like he knows this offense. So he's ahead of the curve and it
Mhm.
shows like, and if this is what we have to look forward to from everyone else, like the sky is going to be pretty high for this team. Like, he's real. Bridges has been a revelation. Just, this is what you and Jarrell really envisioned last year when we talked about, him as an X factor and, a guy that you're going to give up a lot of draft capital for because he's playing legitimately like an all-star. I think you can make the argument that through 6 games he's been our best player, on balance, because I mean Brunson's had a couple games where he's been really good, including last night, but I think he's been kind of more roller coastery in his performance, and Bridges has just been a steady rock since day one this year coming out of camp. So that's great to see.
Yeah, and what I like is he didn't even take a lot of shots, and he was still effective. 4 turnovers, though. I don't want to gloss over that. But still, he only took 7 shots last night, and was still effective as a secondary ball handler. And when we traded Randall, I said, well, Carl Anthony Towns, because you think about Randall as a scorer and a secondary ball handler. I said, well, we're going to have to split that role up. I said, Carl Anthony Towns will probably, could take over the scoring, but we're going to need Bridges to take over that secondary ball handling. And that's what we're seeing um, this season. And I thought last night, from the eye test, he was on the ball more. I thought the 2 games prior to that, Brunson was on the ball more. Last night, I thought Bridges was on the ball more and giving Brunson that opportunity to play, off the ball just a little bit more. So yeah, Bridges assists are up, his rebounds are up. Some games he gets to the line, more than others, but all of his shots are good. He doesn't seem to be shying away. Like he's going in, he's taking the shots. He's making good decisions with the ball. I really like when the ball is in his hands. He makes really good decisions. So, yeah, I'm happy with his performance. And I want to touch on, OG. I think OG's performance throughout the course of the season is going under the radar. Really under the radar. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about his handle or lack thereof, um, and that, he might have had 1 or 2 games out of the 6 where he didn't shoot well, but for the most part, last night, 21 points, 4 rebounds, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 3 of 7 from 3, hit both of his free throws, took 17 shots, made 8 of them. And the variety in which he scores, like the first play of the game, they saw the mismatch under the basket. They went right to him in the post. And let me tell you about OG. He is trying to use his strength. Like he's not stopping short for no teardrops. And like he's trying to go through you and overpower you and use his strength. I'm noticing that on his drives to the basket. He tries to power through the person. That first play of the game when it got it to him in the post, whoever was on him, it wasn't just a little turnaround jumper. He like powered through. I think it was Trey Jones, if I'm not mistaken, for a layup, like right at the rim. Now listen, they made the switch that I thought they should have and putting him on Josh Giddey. Listen, Giddey is just giddying up. I don't know if there's anybody at this point. He is taking off that could stop him or slow him down. He had a triple double last night, and OG was on him. Um, but that being said, I think OG has been really good all around, and I think his performance has been underrated.
Yeah, before I get to piggyback on that, I did want to say something about what you said before, because
Mhm.
he did with Bridges, he did have 4 turnovers, but as long as you're like at 2.5 to 1 assist to turnover ratio, I'm okay with that, because that means you're handling the ball quite a bit. If you handle the ball a lot, your
Yeah,
turnover numbers are gonna. If he
yeah,
was
that's
4
fair.
assists and 4 turnovers, then I would be upset. But if you're
Right.
gonna have 9 assists and 4 turnovers, I'm a little bit. I don't know about you. I know you were a coach too, but I always look for my guards, my lead guards, 2.5 to 1 is
Mhm.
kind of where I want them to be as far as assists to turnover
Yeah,
ratio.
yeah,
And
that's fair. That's fair.
and, and so, and then OG, yeah, he's really played well. He hasn't always scored the ball well, but the stocks was where that's the key stat with me with him. I mean, he's kind of
Mhm.
light rebounding last night, but Towns kind of had that on lockdown. He was,
Yeah.
thrust more into a perimeter role, which affects, how, where you're at position wise for rebounds. I mean, he's guarding the point guard. I mean, that's what makes Giddy so tough, is he's tall and he's,
Mhm, mhm,
and he's really, some players come into the league and they just shine right away, and then there are the Chauncey Billups of the world that take like 2, 3, 4 seasons to really,
right.
understand the game, mature, whatever
Mhm,
the right euphemism is. He seems to be having an all-star season. Like, he is the engine behind them starting off 5-1. Whether that lasts or not, I don't know. But if he plays at this level, it's hard to imagine it not. And kudos to them for seeing something in him and developing him in a way that I never really, expected. Of course, I kind of thought he might be in jail. So,
mhm.
it's one of those strange things. But he's terrific, and but we made it. The OG helped make it where his impact of the game was still limited despite the triple double, right? I mean, he did a good job all the way around. He's a nice guy to have as your fourth best starter. Like, I thought that I mean, we'll get to Mitch in a bit, but I thought that the four typical starters, really good performances. The last 2 games have really been outstanding, and you kind of see how Mike Brown's system is going to allow all of those guys to eat, is what it seems like to me. I'm not sure I want on a nightly basis OG taking 17 shots and Cat taking 11. I'm
Mhm.
not sure that's the best way to run an offense, um but he's making shots, and if that's what it takes to get the best out of him on the other end of the floor, then maybe that's just something you have to live with, because when he's at his best defensively, he makes enough shots to warrant being able to take a decent volume.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think what happens is different players on different nights, because, depending on the ball where the ball moves, depending on where the matchups are, um, some of those shots were probably not. I don't remember him getting a lot of transition points, last night. But the point I wanna make, and this is almost like burying the lead, right? The Knicks shot well. This is the second night in a row where the Knicks shot well, but this time there was the shooting and the ball movement. I noticed it right away in the first quarter. The Knicks are passing the ball, they're moving, they're not just, one person, beating that guy off the dribble, and even though they hit the shot, it's still different. Like, I think that was the last game, the first game against Chicago. We shot a good percentage, but to me, it was more of Cat, whoever got the ball, they would dribble and they would hit their shot. Last night, I thought it was a lot of getting into the key, shrinking the defense, spraying it out, as Mike Brown likes to say, and guys hitting their shots. A lot more ball movement last night. And the Knicks, it didn't look like that to me, but the Knicks are actually, at least coming into last night game, number 5 in passes per game. So they really and that's a significant difference from the year before, I think, where they were 280 something, whatever. But the Knicks are making a concerted effort, to pass the ball. Most of their shots are coming off of catch and shoot, which is what Mike Brown talked about. So they are doing it. So you could see certain things are not that different. And we'll talk about this on the weekly show. It's not that much different from last year, but the passes per game, the catch and shoot opportunities, the volume of threes, right? They're taking, I think, about 50.4% of their shots from two and like 49.6% of their shots from three. And I know last year we would always say, listen, the Knicks are an efficient team. They shoot pretty well from three. They're just not getting the volume. This year they are getting the volume. Coming into last night's game, though, they were just 19 in efficiency from three. So the volume is there. It's just a matter of shooting better. And then once they do, you're going to get scores like last night, 128, if they're hitting their threes. So yeah, I just wanted to point out about the ball movement and the shooting last night.
And a couple interesting things, at least to me there. I think that's a great point. They actually shot a better percent from outside the arc than they did from inside the arc. So, but I do think that is progression to the mean. Like these guys are talented shooters, and so for them to be at 33%, or whatever it was on the season, they were underachieving what they normally do. So I think that this was just kind of a bounce back game, and they'll probably be a happy medium closer to about, 38% probably, where it'll settle in over time, because that's kind of where they are.
But on 45 to 53s a game, or about 40 to 45, that's going to be.
And what I wanted to do to piggyback off your point, though, is what you were talking about, the ball movement. Even in the first Chicago game, it didn't seem like it, but I was watching somebody, and it's on Twitter, but I think I saw that in the game we lost to Chicago, Brunson had 17 potential assists. I think it was hot hand theory. 17 potential assists that only turned into 7 assists. Right. And so that was in a game where you admittedly from the eye test said that you thought his process was not good. So I think that, and I'm not disagreeing with you that his process wasn't good. I'm just saying that even with a bad process, he had 17 potential assists, right? And you got to, Ajay always says you got to make the shot to have the assist. It's a stupid stat, right? But I think that last night you continue to see he didn't give up on it just because it didn't work out that game. He's trusting in what the coach wants to do, and he was better, and he's the tone setter with that, right? And he still scored tremendously, even playing off the ball. So I think if we can continue to show him that, hey, you don't have to pound the rock as much, you can play off the ball. Now, it helped that Bridges was, doing his John Stockton impression last night. That was nice. And I'm not sure we're going to see that every game, but it was good to see those two kind of, share the load back there, because it makes the defense work harder, because you don't know where it's coming from. If you have to follow Brunson and Bridges, that makes us more dynamic, and good things happen when the defense has to scramble around to figure out what you're doing, instead of everybody takes a turn ISO. Like, that can get pretty easy to guard.
Yeah, for sure. And Jeff, you're right, because I think the eye test is good, but the stats tell a different story. And you're absolutely right. Not necessarily that I thought he was passing too much. I just thought he was on the ball. Like, I'm shooting too much. I guess so. I just thought he was on the ball a lot. It was always in his hands, in terms of him being the decision maker, as opposed to spreading it around. But I agree with your point that, we may see something and the stats tell a different story. I was looking at the drives and passing stats, and the Knicks are fourth in drives, 59.2 drives per game, and they pass on 42.2% of their drives, which is sixth in the league. But they're only getting 5 assists off those drives, and that's because they're only shooting like 43.3% off of the points that off of the shots that they're getting. So the Knicks are driving, the ball. The Knicks are driving and kicking, you know. We're just not hitting, at least coming into the Chicago game. So I think in terms of style, this is what Mike Brown wants, right? He wants more ball movement. He wants more player movement. He wants more driving and kicking so guys can get open shots. Um, and it's just a matter of knocking them down. And over the last 2 games, they've been doing that. So if that continues, I think as time goes on, it'll start taking a shape, in terms of the vision that Mike Brown has for the team. Thoughts on Mitchell Robinson? 13 minutes last night. He played 17 games last season. He came back, played in the playoffs, and I thought, like, wow, he's back over the course of the summer. He's going to be back to 100% because, even though he played well in the playoffs, he didn't look like he wasn't 100%. So I'm like, over the summer, he's going to be 100%. And we're going to get the Mitch that we always, dreamed of. And of course, and listen, there may be load management, right? But the games in which he plays, this is what we're going to get. Now, I don't know if there's been a setback since he came back last year. Now, the Knicks are saying that they're just load managing him. I didn't hear anything about a setback. So that being said, if there hasn't been a setback, it sure looks like there was. Like, I don't see that progression from coming back last year to this season. He had a shot blocked. He had a missed dunk, and I don't know. It just seemed like his legs are not up under him the way we're used to seeing it. Has there been a setback? Like, did something happen in the off season that you can recall?
I don't know that I recall anything, but that's what the facts look like, right? Whether we're I you know, I was about to say the same thing as you. It looks like that, the ambulance is like right on his heels again. It's just you just kind of, I mean, he only's played in 2 games so far anyway, and out of 6, and you kind of feel like he's probably going to
Yeah.
be missing a long stretch again. And sometimes with big men, it's like that. Remember Yao Ming, right? You know, once you have those foot and ankle and extremity problems, it just extremely large humans. And, there's a ton of cases of big men who just, you know, the talent is there. Greg Oden, for pity's sake, right? The talent is there, but you just, never get to see it because of injury. I kind of, and I hate to say this because it's only been 6 games, but I kind of am at the point where the old Robinson feels like an illusion. Like, he doesn't feel like he's something that we're gonna have, and so we're just gonna have to get used to life without him. And that's a little bit frightening to me because I'm not sure I have a lot of confidence in Ariel Hukporty. And Coach Brown only played Yabusele 5 minutes in the last 2 games, and he said that he's fine injury wise. He just was tightening up the rotation. Well, that's not a good sign for Yabusele, right? If that's the case, but you know, so we don't have a lot of depth at the 5 spot to begin with. Um, part of me is okay with it because I think I like Towns at the 5. I know there are a lot of people who insist that he's a power forward. I think he had his best stats of his career last year, or close to it. I think his third season was equal, but I think he was playing center in that season too. So I like Towns at the 5. I think he gives you a lot of advantages. At the same time, the defense is really bad when he's not a rim protector, and it really looks like Mike Brown does emphasize. I'm starting to see this now. I don't know if you agree with me, but he emphasizes really, keeping people out of the paint, like limit paint touches, and so that means a lot of compacting into the paint. And when you're failing at that 5 spot, that makes everything else in your defense rather difficult. And Chicago still scored 116 points last night. There's something like that. It's not like we put the clamps on them or whatever you want to say. So I do think that's going to be interesting to watch going forward, and we may need to make a deal to get another 5 in here.
Yeah, I put the slide up. I wanted to see the points in the paint, 54-42. But in all fairness to the Knicks are not a paint team. Like the Knicks are a 3-point, a 3-point shooting team. That's where they like to take, that's where they like to take their shots. And it's anywhere from 45 to 50 some odd percent of their shots, are coming from the 3-point line. I will say, last night, in the first game against Chicago in limited minutes, I think he had 11, I think he had 11 rebounds. He seemed to tweak his ankle in the second game last night. So maybe that led to him getting just 13 minutes as opposed to 18 or 19. Maybe they're being really careful with him. And his time on the court, talk about short spurts. Like he just got in the game. In like 3 minutes, he's out. He comes back in 3 minutes, he's out. So I'm not sure if that's impacting his,
do you think that's part of his load management, though?
I think it is.
You know what I mean? Just if we're gonna play you a certain number of minutes, and they're gonna be these short stints, so that you're not, you know what I mean? So maybe it's not as much wear and tear on him.
I agree, Jeff. But how much do you expect him to do in those, in 3-minute spurts? You know what I mean? So I don't think we're going to see the best of Mitchell Robinson, I should say, if he's playing in 3-minute, 3-minute spurts. And to your point, if he's playing less than 20 minutes a game, you're not playing Yabusele. I'm not sure how he's doing it because Towns played 36 minutes. So it's not like Towns minutes is up to compensate. So
OG's gonna play some 5. Then that's what you're gonna see. I mean, that's the only other choice, right? And I know this. Not everybody's a fan of small ball, but it looks like we're gonna see. We may be forced into seeing a good percentage of it, just based upon who's available.
Yeah, and I think in those games though, like tonight, Mitch might not play. I'm guessing if they're doing load management, this is a back-to-back. He may not play tonight. Maybe this is where we see more of Yabusele and more of Hukporti. I was reading an article, the rim protection between Yabusele has been the best rim protector behind Mitch, and it wasn't even super great, but Hukporti has been worse, in terms of rim protection. But listen, I don't want it to come across as if I'm banging on those guys. It takes time to adjust, and we're gonna see. We're gonna see probably more of Hukporti and more of Yabusele tonight in the absence of if Mitchell Robinson doesn't play, unless he really tightens up the rotation.
I think he should still go with 9, although I wouldn't be opposed to a few Trey Jamison minutes. Actually, I think Jamison looks better as far as rim protection is concerned than even Hukporti, and that's crazy because I don't know. Ariel has just not done it for me so far this year. I haven't really seen anything that's popped or flashed when he's been in the game. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, he's out there, and maybe that's but he's not really a starter, and he's kind of been thrown in with it. But you would figure with better players around him, he would have more of an opportunity to shine at any rate, even if he, because he's not gonna have the ball in his hand. We don't put the ball in our 5's hands at all anyway, like unless it's Towns, right? So I mean, it's not like we're asking a lot from him on the offensive end. What we want him to do is to defend at a high level and be able to provide some of that rim protection. If he's not going to do that, he's not really worth having in the game. I kind of it'd be interested to see if they could dust off Diawara and see, because I love his hustle. I love his, what I mean. Obviously, it was preseason, but I just liked his process when he was out there, and I think it might, if you're going to get a player who's not going to be anything on the offensive end anyway, why not give that kid a shot? I mean, he's definitely going to get. He's definitely going to play hard. There's not going to be any question of that. So. And I know he's the 15th man, and we all love the 15th man. So I'm not banging the table for him to have like a actual role on a championship, contender. But I right now I'm worried about the 5 spot. Mitch has done it again, in terms of not really being able to rely on him, and so you've got. It's pretty thin, slim pickings, and
Yeah, that was one of the things I was calling for in terms of roster construction, right? I wanted another point guard, a veteran point guard, and I wanted another big. But in all fairness to the Knicks, they could have been trying to do that, and they just weren't, a lot of options, out there.
we didn't have much money, right? I mean, it's
Not
the
much
one thing
money.
to say we want to do that, but
Mhm,
if you're
mhm.
getting a big at the vet minimum, how good a big are you getting, right? I mean, so there's I think that Thomas Bryant was out there, but I don't know that. I'm not sure that I'm not sure how happy we would be. I mean, he's a stretch 5, but I'm not sure that we would be, thrilled with him or not. But it
Well,
was a
but you
new,
gotta compare whoever the big is, you're comparing them to Huck Porty.
right. And we
That's
did
who.
have Alex Len in camp, but Len
Yeah,
didn't look good either, even in comparison to Borgie. So
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about Hart, who I thought looked more like himself last night. He led the bench in minutes with 26, 14 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 or 3, I think maybe 3 assists. Um, one steal, did turn the ball over 3 times, 50% from the field, 1 of 4 from 3. Like, I mean, that's just not his game. I just felt like that's obviously if you're wide open and they're daring you to shoot it, then you should shoot it. There were a few times when he was open from 3 and he made the decision to drive to the basket. Yeah, drive to the basket. I think he's really good as a secondary ball handler and a secondary playmaker. I was about to say his playmaking is underrated, but it's not. We already know he can create shots for others. And he just looked like he was in his element, getting the rebounds, pushing it down the floor, finding, other guys for shots. Um, and that's what I want to see. You're not a shooter. I'm not stressing about his 3-point shooting. It's those other things. And we got a glimpse of it last night. He played more minutes. I think that helped. Um, yeah, thoughts on Josh Hart last night?
well, that's welcome back, right?
Right.
That's the player that we're used to, and to be able to do that with one hand, pretty much you were saying. I didn't understand really what you were saying the other day, but you were absolutely right. He has like nerve damage in that hand, and he can't always feel like. That's crazy. Like you're
Right.
playing with, I don't know, basketball is such a tactile game. I would think that that's really a big physical challenge. Uh, but one of the plays that from Hart last night that I liked is he had a open 3 and he pump faked and he got his guy in the air. He got in the paint and then he made a tough little
Mhm.
mid-range floater kind of a shot. And I was like, yeah, that's it. Because if he makes that, then they have to respect that, and then he can go wild with spraying the ball out to shooters, because they've got to react to that. So really good game from Josh Hart last night. He didn't forget how to play basketball. It may
Right.
just be that he's, as you said, he didn't play in preseason. He's, so you kind of have to get your feet wet and and he is in a new role, and he has to learn all 5, positions on the floor, because apparently they're going to play him at center too. I don't
Mm.
know.
I don't see that, Jeff. But when you think about the issues we're having, Maybe.
But
Yeah.
no, it was a good bounce back game from Josh. I think I'm not sure he's going to be that good every night, but I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was the previous game. So if we get something in the middle in 24, 25 minutes, or even if it's 18 to 20, I think that's fine. He gave us what we needed last night, and that's really all you can ask. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Um, McBride's minutes were down to 23. He's been closer to 28 to 30. I'm not sure if that's part of consolidating the bench and giving more minutes to other guys, or he may still be grieving, and may not be 100% emotionally. I'm not sure, but 8 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, shot 50% from, had 4 3-pointers and made 2 of them. Thoughts on McBride last night?
I liked Deuce last night. He played within himself. He was good. Um, I think that if that playmaking Deuce a little bit, which is kind of nice. We don't see a lot of assists from him very
Hmm.
often, so I think that speaks to the process overall that you were talking about.
Hmm.
And spraying the ball and getting touches and those sorts of things, and because you've said it before, his scoring is on catch and shoot 3-pointers. Like that's the one skill that he does well on the offensive end as far as scoring the basketball. Everything else he's average to below average at, in my opinion. And so, he did that when those opportunities came, he took advantage of them, but he did a little bit more. His playmaking has
Hmm.
improved since he was a rookie. And so
Oh, of
so it's
course. And his
you know,
handle.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so he's better. I mean, he's still not like I wouldn't call him good at those things, but he's improved at those things at the very least, and he made shots. And look, his defensive presence is always, you know, those. It's amazing when McBride and Hart play poorly, we lose by a dozen. When McBride and Hart play well, we win by a dozen.
Yeah.
Those two guys really do have an impact, even if they're not playing starters minutes, right?
Yeah.
So I think if we can have both of them it goes back to what you said though at the with your first point. I really like how he utilized the bench and how he utilized the team,
Yeah.
and it made a lot more sense. Like everybody kind of had a more defined role. And maybe part of it is that McBride got to play some, you know, lead guard minutes with Kolek not soaking up the
That's yeah.
backup Brunson minutes. So maybe that had something to do with it. I'm not sure, but Deuce is gonna be fine. He's a good player. I hope. I'm sorry for his loss. I know that death is always a difficult thing to deal with, and it's easy to just say, well, you've got a job to do it, but they're humans, they're people, right? And everybody deals with grief in different ways. And I don't know how close he was with his grandma, but if some people, their grandma's like their mom, right? Like they're the ones who raised them. And if that's the case, that's devastating, right? That's not just something it's not the same as, oh, grandma who I see twice a year and she sends me a card on my birthday,
Right.
and I don't ever talk to her. That's one thing. But if he was really close to her, that can be a difficult thing to get over. And so,
Yeah.
it's good to see him just, look like Deuce. I mean, I think when he's right, he's effective rotation player in the NBA. And that's that for what we're paying him. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Kolek is out of the rotation as the backup point guard, and they seem to be going with McBride and Clarkson behind Brunson. Um, I don't think that's ideal, but I like it. I like it. There's some when you're trying to tighten up a rotation and make sure guys get enough minutes to be effective, you're gonna have to make some tough decisions. And that was one of them. I thought Kolek, when he did play, his decision making was good, right? Um, but you gotta, in my opinion, McBride, and I said this I think on the last show, you got to stick your flag in the sand. Like, these are my 9 guys, and give them enough minutes to do what they do. And then over the course of 10, 15, as Jarrell would say, 20 games, then if if you want to make a change, you make a change, but you want to have enough sample size to be able to, to assess it. And it seems like the Hart, it's just been one game. We'll see. The Hart, McBride, Shamit, Clarkson seems to be those 9 guys. And not that the other ones won't play. Um, they'll be more situational. If you had to, I think I know the answer, but if you had to shorten the bench, would these be the 4 players you would have chosen, or you would have put Hakporti, Kolik, or Yabu in instead of one of those guys?
Actually, I think that I would do the same thing that Mike Brown is doing. Possibly Yabusele. Like, I'm not sure what's going on with him. Like, I'm curious about that. I don't like. I'm wondering if it is kind of his weight and getting back into basketball shape. Not saying that is, but I kind of have a feeling like it is.
Mhm.
But the way that Shamit has played has been good. I know that puts us at small, but the look. Kolek was getting 12 to 14 minutes. You've given probably Deuce an extra 5 minutes and Clarkson an extra 5 minutes. I think that helps both of them. When you're only playing 3 minute stretches, and
Yeah.
you're a player like Clarkson, it takes him 2 minutes to get warm, and then he gets warm, and then then it's time to go to the bench, right? And so and
He's still
I'm not.
putting up 3 shots while he's getting warm, though.
Yeah, that's him getting warm. Like, you got to get him up, but once after that third shot, he's ready to go, and
Right.
then
Right.
you know, I I was actually surprised to start the season that Kolek was getting so many minutes. I kind of thought going into it that the Knicks had kind of decided that Clarkson McBride was going to be their plan as the backup one. Now McBride did miss a couple games, so maybe that put a monkey wrench into that line of thinking, and maybe he plans to only play Clarkson 18 minutes. Like, maybe he doesn't want him on the floor for more than that for whatever reason. I don't know,
Mhm.
but I kind of expected that those two were going to get that responsibility, and it certainly worked last night. That doesn't mean that it's going to work every
Right.
night, right? So, but again, I don't think Kolek is at the point in his career where he's impactful enough where you could say we have to keep this guy on the floor, right? I'm not sure. Like, I think that the way you judge Kolek is, would you rather have Deuce or Clarkson on the court than him? And I'm
Right.
not a Clarkson guy, but I kind of think that I would rather have Jordan. I trust Jordan more than I trust Tyler. He's veteran, he's savvy. You know, he
He
he's
has the
able to get in
experience.
the paint. He just does more. He's a better player right now. Even even with his inefficiency, he's a better player than Tyler is right now. Now, he's not the same player as Tyler, but Tyler maybe sees the floor better and assists better. But you know, I'm not sure that we don't need more of what we saw from Clarkson last night with scoring in that second unit, and then sharing those responsibilities with Deuce and Josh Hart. Like, the 3 of those guys kind of each took like a small piece of the playmaking with the second unit, and it worked. And so I think that the way that this team is just constructed, and it does have its flaws, I think that's the best way to hide those flaws, is to rely on those 3 veterans and say, you guys are going to be tasked with this at times, and they're capable of doing it. So, and it's like for 14, 15 minutes. So, you
Right.
know, and, you know,
Yeah.
you gotta live through it.
Thoughts on Clarkson? Listen, he is inefficient, and we never, being inefficient means that, you know, you'll have good games, right? And so I'm not sure if this is a turn in a corner as much as it is just one of those good games, right? That inefficient players have. But I would like him to settle into I want to see more of his playmaking, and I've seen some of it. Like I've seen some of him creating shots, but he is a underrated passer. I just think it's a mental shift for him that it may be too late in his career. Um, where on this particular team, we definitely need his scoring. I would prefer it more in the flow of the offense as opposed to forcing it or creating it. But I just think that second unit would flow so much better if we also had more of his playmaking skills in that second unit. He can get into the lane. He can really get into, and he can finish. I mean, I don't know. I would have to look. I'll look at cleaning the glass and just see historically what has been his finish, his stats finishing at the rim. Um,
It's
but
not terrible. I don't think it is. I think he's decent.
he's
And
decent.
I mean, he
Okay.
may not be elite, but I think he's not bad at finishing at the rim. Could be wrong about that, but I when I
Mhm.
looked at some numbers when we signed him, and I was like, well, he finishes at the rim better than I thought he did. You know,
Yeah, but that means that he can also draw attention and dish, and he's an underrated passer. He can make those passes. Like some players, you'd be like, "Wow, you couldn't see that? Like you couldn't make that pass." He can. So I just would like to see more of it. And listen, maybe now that if this is the indication of things to come, that he'll be in the game for larger stretches of time. Maybe we'll get to see more of his game. Maybe he'll take more pressure off of himself and not feel like he has to shoot them up. I mean, he was efficient last night, but there was at least 2 possessions after he hit one. Like it's just one shot. And he's on a heater. He comes and he just hijacks the offense and nobody touched the ball. And he was on the floor with Cat, and it might have been Brunson. So it's not like he was on the floor with other bench players. He was on the floor with some starters, and he just hijacked the offense for like 2 possessions. I'm like, come on, like bring it down. Bring it down a little bit. So we'll see. I think I'm on an island by myself when I say if this team is going to be successful in the playoffs, you got to have guys who can create shots when things slow down, when things get tight, the defense is ramped up. You got to have guys that can get a bucket. And it's Bridges, it's Brunson, and it's Clarkson. I would put OG there. I don't know how he'll do when things tighten up, a little bit. But because his handle, he's making it happen, but it's not the tightest handle right now. But Clarkson is one of those guys, and I do think we're gonna need that bench scoring in the playoffs. So I'm really pulling for him to get it together. Because I think we need it. I think we need it.
this is how you know Queen is a great hostess. She's going to make me say something nice about Jordan Clarkson. No, I think that's that is probably the best argument for Jordan Clarkson that I've heard, is that, and you have to keep that in mind going forward. And part of it is maybe we just need to let Jordan Clarkson be Jordan Clarkson, like understand who he is and just kind of live with it, right? I mean, and part of being a good coach is maximizing what the talents are of the players that you have and maximizing their strengths and what they do well, right? And so, if we're expecting Jordan Clarkson to be Malcolm Brogdon, we're going to be disappointed, right? Let's
Right.
just get the best Jordan Clarkson that we could get. And we I do think it's fun that he was efficient last night. He was still -5, but box plus minus. But not.
Wow.
But I mean,
Yeah, he was. He was. He
and
was.
so I, that's my frustration with Jordan, is even when he shoots the ball well, he's still not necessarily a positive impact player. But again, box plus minus is funky, and
Yeah.
and so Clarkson's going to have his moments where he's good, and he's going to have his moments where he's not. That's the life of an inefficient player. But just let Clarkson be Clarkson and let him do the things that he does well. And if that means some possessions he kind of hijacks the offense, well, kind of let him do that because, as you said, when things slow down in the playoffs, that's the skill he brings to the table that really nobody else on this second unit has. Right? He can create a shot when the shot clock is low. Like and then in the first couple games, they gave him the ball with 3 seconds left, and they're like, "Okay, Jordan, do something with it." And then he's like, he's not afraid to hoist, but you're not going to get
Right.
the best Clarkson you can get when he's just forced into that situation either. Last year it was Josh Hart who was, who always had those, but he always seemed last year when Josh Hart had the ball with like a second left, he always seemed to make the shot. It was crazy. It was the highest efficiency of the season. So I don't know, but I'm trying to be a better person. I'm gonna try and ease up on Jordan. I need to extend grace to him and acknowledge when he did some nice things, and he was much better last night. Then it's probably his best game as a Knick so far, and more of that would be welcome.
Yeah, and I will say even the last 2 games, because I try to separate process from efficiency. I thought even the
Results, yeah.
last 2 games, he didn't hit his shots, but I thought he played more within the flow of the game. I thought the first 2 games of the season, as soon as he got in, he was just jacking them up. The last 2 games, even before this game, I thought he was playing within the flow of the offense. He just wasn't hitting his shots. Tonight, I thought he played for the most part within the flow of the offense and hit his shots. And we got some shot creation for others out of him on like 1 or 2 possessions. So I'm rooting for him because I think if he's at his best, whatever that is, that's going to help the Knicks, particularly in the playoffs. Lastly, Shamit hit all of his threes last night. I have in my notes about time. About time. The first game against
About time for all of them, man. Not just Shannon. It was about time for
that is
all
true.
of them as far
That's true. The
as the
first game,
three-point shooting. But yeah,
the first game against Chicago.
That's Andrew's fault, though, right? Play good defense and.
But you got to knock down. He got the first game against Chicago in the first quarter. He got 3 wide open looks and missed all 3 of them.
Yeah.
I think his shot is a bit.
You got to make shots, bro.
You got to make shots, and he gets timely looks, and by that I mean he gets looks that if he knocks them down, either extends our lead or helps us cut into their lead. And I just want him to be a bit more consistent. He is what he is at this point, but that shot is a little too flat for me. I just need a little more air under the shot, Shem.
Probably
Anyway,
why he's inconsistent, right? It's kind of like Cam Payne was a decent percentage 3-point shooter, but it's like every time he shot the ball, it's like, I want to gouge my eyes out rather than watch that, right? Like now, Shannon doesn't have an ugly form,
but yeah.
But process-wise, I think his shot doesn't. It's flat, and so because it's flat, you're gonna have times when he's dead on, he's dead on, but when he's not. He doesn't have that lift on it to
Right.
you know what I mean, to give himself much grace on it. I guess is I don't know if that's the right term, but
Grace, margin, fine.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next 2 appointments tonight, we play the Washington Wizards, who are 1-5 at 7:30 at MSG, and then Wednesday we play the Minnesota Timberwolves. Really looking forward to that game. Not overlooking Washington, but looking forward to Minnesota. Also 7:30 at MSG. The projected starters, I'm not sure Mitchell. I put Mitchell Robinson here. I should have put a question mark. This is a back-to-back game. Mitchell Robinson may not play tonight. And so does that mean Huck Porty starts? Does he start Miles McBride, move Karl Anthony Towns to center? Does he start Josh Hart, move Karl Anthony Towns to center? He did close last night with the starters from he's mixing up the last 5 minutes with Hart and a shooter. Like it'll start with Hart, then he'll bring in McBride like a shooter, as opposed to just going the full 5 minutes with a 5-out lineup. But anyway, for Washington, who's 1-5, the projected starters, this is who started their last game. CJ McCollum is playing for them. Remember, he was last in New Orleans, if I'm not mistaken. How do you pronounce that? Koulibaly? Koulibaly. Middleton, right? From Milwaukee Bucks last year is playing with them. K George and is his second or third year? It might be second year.
He's got some good performances so far this year, surprisingly.
Yeah. That's who we're playing. And listen, we can't take anybody for granted. They've lost, I believe, 3 in a row. So they're going to be hungry for a win. We're just now getting our stride, getting our rotations together, getting our shooting together. Hopefully we're on point. And this is kind of small to see, but right now, in terms of the Eastern Conference, Jeff is prophetic. I don't know how long this is gonna last, but Philadelphia 5-1, number 1 in the Eastern Conference. Chicago 5-1, number 2. Milwaukee 4-2. Detroit 4-2. Cleveland 4-3. Miami 3-3, and then our Knicks 3-3. Toronto 3-4. Atlanta 3-4. Orlando 3-4. Just quickly, any surprises either way in terms of overperformance, underperformance?
Chicago. Chicago at 5-1 is stunning to me. I did not have that on my bingo card at all. Everybody else kind of seems like every night is a scrap and a battle in the Eastern Conference. You can't take any games for granted. Like, look at how many teams already have 3 or 4 wins. Like, it's a lot, and Washington took the Sixers to overtime the other night. So you have to come to play. And you know how I am. Second game of a back-to-back, I always am super nervous about those. How do the players respond with their bodies and everything? And at least they're both home games, so I think that helps. But did Washington play last night?
They did not, and they've actually lost 4 in a row, not 3.
So they're better rested than we are, and it's not that far a trip. So the Knicks can't just sleepwalk through this game. They've got to take care of business and come out with force and physicality. And I think that was a big key to beating Chicago. Was we were physical. We out physicaled them the whole game. And I think if we come with the requisite urgency and physicality, we should win this easily. But the Knicks don't usually do what they, you know what I mean? We like to play with our food. We've always liked to play with our food. So I expect it'll be a down to the wire game, and hopefully we come out with 1 more point than they do at least.
Yeah. I think the Knicks win. I get it. It's a back-to-back. It's Washington. I'm sorry. They've lost 4 in a row. I get it. They didn't play last night, but we're in the Garden. The Knicks.
Make it happen, Captain.
Say that again.
Make it happen, Captain. Let's go.
Yeah. Make it happen. Anyway, any last words, Jeff? Thanks for watching. We appreciate you guys. Be sure to leave the comments, down below, and let us know how you feel about the Knicks win last night. Any last words, Jeff?
Let's go get a W, and we'll be back at it lunchtime tomorrow. So at 11:30, is that right?
12, 12:30. I have flexibility tomorrow, so 12 or 12:30 works for me.
Okay. Well, I'll be ready to go at 11, and whatever works.
Oh, that's right.
I have flexibility too. So, but I'll be ready to go tomorrow, and hopefully another happy recap. These are a lot more fun when we win. There's no doubt about that.
Jeff, you're definitely much more smooth. You can feel the agitation when the Knicks lose, and don't let it be 2 in a row. You ain't got nothing that's nice to say. Clarkson needs to be off the team. What's going on? Hart is a hot mess. He just needs to go get his finger taken care of.
You ain't lying.
We win.
And this is after, and this is with the time to cool down. Imagine if we did the show right after the. The
Exactly.
game. I mean,
Exactly.
firing everybody.
Right. And so, Jeff, we won, and now you're like, you know what? I'm gonna give Clarkson some grace. So winning definitely helps. Listen, I appreciate you. You're making doing these shows fun. I look forward to it. Jeff, also for those that don't know, and I don't know why I used to have it up here. I don't know what happened. Um, Underneath where you would have your tagline. I'll fix it for the next show. But Jeff does a daily sports blog. The link to his show will be in the description, so be sure to check it out. It's good reading, and you can. I think if you subscribe or if you put your email, it comes right to your box, which makes it easier to read the articles.
And I would love comments, guys, because it helps me as a writer. So please, even if you don't like it or whatever, the criticism. If I don't ever get criticism, I don't ever improve either. So I accept all comments, and I want to hear what you guys have to say. And that's the nice, because it shows me that people are reading it. Because once it goes to email, I don't necessarily see the stats on
Gotcha.
but I don't care about the stats. I do it because I enjoy it. But I would love to get some feedback from everybody, because when you write, the only way to become a better writer is for people to read your stuff and tell you what they like, what they don't like, etc. So
I don't know about don't like. I think you're a really good writer. It is such an easy read. Like the flow to it is just an easy read. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna have to come back to this. Anyway, Jeff, I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Sister, you one of a kind.
Yes.
Sister, it's time you
That's
shine. Don't talk,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't talk,
Where you at? Where you at?
don't talk,
What?
don't talk,
What?
don't talk.
Where you at? Where you at?
All right.